Shalom, as everyone doing? Today is day 46 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, when we're learning Siman Seif Test Zayin. Let's begin. Gufa Isha, the body of a woman. Kal makom shedarka leskasos, any part that's normally covered. Im niskala sham shi'ur tefach, if a tefach of that part is revealed. V'chein sa'aros shel isha nesua, or hair of a married woman, asher darka lechasos, which is normally covered. Im niskala kitzasmin, if a bit of them is revealed. Chashav kamo erva legabe ish. It's considered an erva in regards to a man who's looking at it. Vein chilek ben shi isha or isha acharas. It doesn't matter if it's his own wife or another woman. Ava legabe isha lo chashiv kamo erva. But if another woman's looking at it, that's not considered an erva. Kol zemer me isha. The voice of singing of a woman, chashav ganim king kamo erva, is also considered an erva. However, if it's a time of need, Shu Shomei Nashim Mizamros, that he's listening to women singing, and he can't protest them to tell them to stop. He shouldn't not say Shema or Davin or learn. He should strengthen his heart to concentrate to concentrate on whatever Davar Shebekdusha is being osekin, that he's dealing with, and he shouldn't pay any attention to her. Okay. So obviously, as we were discussing yesterday, there's halacha, one is not allowed to say Davar Shebekdusha in the presence of nakedness. So we asked, what's considered the presence of nakedness? So he said, in regards to a man, it's very simple, right? A man has one erva, one thing that's considered nakedness, according to the Torah, and that is a man's private area. And that is clear. However, when it comes to a woman, it's a little bit less clear. So if you look in the Shalosh Teshuvos Machzeh Eliyahu, he says there are three categories we have to deal with when we're talking about nakedness of a woman. One, he says, is the nakedness of a woman that the Torah describes as an erva. And that is, there's two areas of woman that's considered a real erva on a Torah level, and that is a woman's private area, just like a man's private area, a woman's private area, and a woman's chest. Those two areas are going to be considered an erva, and when the Torah says that you can't see the Davar Shebekdusha by an erva, that's what the Torah is referring to. So that's going to be category number one. Category number two is things that the Chazal added on, and they said that these things really aren't considered an erva, nakedness that the Torah talks about, but these are the things that a man looks at it and he has inappropriate thoughts. And he says there are two examples of this. One is going to be a woman's thigh. That's one. And two, a woman's arm, specifically a woman's upper arm, from the elbow and up. Those two things are going to be considered an erva by Chazal because they lead to inappropriate thoughts. Why those two areas specifically? He explains because these two areas are very close to a woman's actual erva, right? The upper arm is very close to a woman's chest. The thigh is very close to a woman's private area. So those two things are going to be an erva midrabanan, because they lead to inappropriate thoughts. Okay, that is category number two. Then we have category number three, which is any area of a woman that's usually covered, that is also going to be considered an erva midrabanan. Why? Because those things also lead to inappropriate thoughts. For example, let's say you live in a time and place where all women cover their feet. All right, so if you would go and you would see a woman's uncovered feet, that would lead to inappropriate thoughts. That's not something you're used to, and it would lead to bad thoughts. Okay, fine. So just to sum up, we have three categories. One is the erva, which is the erva on the Torah level. That is obviously a woman's chest and a woman's private area. Then we have two with things that are near a woman's real erva, and we say those things are also considered an erva on a derabanan level because they lead to inappropriate thoughts. And number three is something that really depends on the time and place. So the major question we have to ask here, what would a hair, specifically a married woman's hair, which category would that fall under? Would it fall under category number one? No. Category number one is just those two things. Would it fall under category number two, which is something that Chazal came and they said is always going to be an erva no matter what, right? For example, like a woman's thigh and a woman's upper arm, that's going to be an erva in every generation. Even if you live in a certain generation where all the women have a practice of uncovering their thighs or their upper arms, Chazal said that is considered an erva, at least midrabanan. So too, those things would always be an erva. So is hair like that, right? Is a married woman's hair like that? and even if you live in a time and place where married women don't cover their hair, but maybe it would still be like the upper arm or the thigh, that it would be considered an erva, that Chazal came and they said people have inappropriate thoughts when they see them. Or maybe it's like category number 3, that really goes by the time and place. So this is a machlokas between the Mishnah Berurah and the Aruch Shulchan actually. So the Mishnah Berurah clearly says he's talking about women's hair, specifically married women's hair, and it says the afilam derech isha zuva chavrosah b'osam makom leila gilei harosh bishuk k'derech haprutzos. Even if you live in a time and place where women do always have their hair uncovered, and that's just what they do, still it's usher to say Devarim Shebekdusha. He says kamo shok, just like the thigh. Just like we have halacha by the thigh, that even if you live in a time and place where women go out with their thighs revealed, you're still not able to say Devarim Shebekdusha, because Chazal said that's considered an erva. So too, a married woman's hair, since it's usher for a woman to go out, a married woman to go out with uncovered hair. Therefore, that's like Chazal making an assessment that uncovered hair is always gonna lead to improper thoughts, even if you live in a place where women actually go out with their hair uncovered. So that's going to be the shita of the Mishnah Berurah. But then we have an Aruch Shulchan. This is a very well quoted Aruch Shulchan, but people don't quote the whole thing, so we'll have to quote the whole thing. Okay, this is in Siman Ayin Hey, Seif Dain. Right? He comes out and he cries about the pritzas that goes on, specifically in his generation. In his time, it was a big problem that a lot of married women would go out with uncovered hair. Right? And all the Rabbanan at the time, they tried to protest about this. They cried out about it. It's a very bad thing. However, it didn't help. All the crying didn't help, and women would, in his time, would actually go out with uncovered hair. So he says, what can we do? Like, it's very sad that this has happened. However, mihu al kalpanim ledina nirshim motor lanu sval varich neged roshein hamagulos. But nowadays we've become so accustomed to seeing married women's hair that it's probably considered like a woman's hand, a woman's face. These are revealed parts of the body that you don't have to be concerned about saying Devarim Shebekdusha next to. And he says it's kimakumos hamagulam megufo. So obviously he's saying it's like category number 3, right? Category number 2, the thigh and the upper arm, that's going to be an erva every generation. But here, this will only be, the Aruch Shulchan says, if you live in a place where married women actually do go out with their hair uncovered, even though he clearly says it's a very bad thing, but it would not be considered an erva in regards to saying Devarim Shebekdusha. Okay. So how do we hold? Do we hold like Aruch Shulchan, that he's very mekel, that you could say Devarim Shebekdusha by a married woman's hair, as long as you live in a place where married women do have exposed hair? Or do we hold like the Mishnah Berurah that no, there's no exception, even if you live in a place where married women do go out with their hair uncovered, it's still considered an erva by Chazal standards, therefore you wouldn't be able to say Devarim Shebekdusha. Okay. It's hard to be machriach, but let's assume we do hold like the Mishnah Berurah. Let's assume we hold like the Mishnah Berurah that a married woman's hair is considered an erva. Let's assume that, but how strict are we going to be regarding that erva? Let me explain. Yesterday we quoted machlokas about when it comes to an erva. Well, does it help to just close your eyes, or do you actually have to turn your head or turn your entire body? So we said yesterday we quoted all these shitos. We quoted the Taz, the Magen Avraham, the Gra. They said no, you can't be in a position you're able to see it. You actually have to turn your whole body, and that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. Mishnah Berurah says we should follow that. That in regards to an erva, you should really turn your whole body. However, the Mishnah Berurah has a discussion. What about an erva? What about these types of erva? Right? We said there are 3 categories. Category number 1 is the erva deoraisa. So that would be like erva of a man, and we'd actually be machmir that we turn around our whole body. But what about these 2 other categories? Right? What about something that Chazal say that these aren't actually an erva, but they assess that people have improper thoughts when they're looking at this area? Could we be more mekel? So first Mishnah Berurah says, no, we can't be more mekel. An erva is an erva. Right, who cares if it's a real erva that the Torah says, or an erva that Chazal assessed will lead to improper thoughts? You still have to turn around your whole body. However, then he quotes the Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim says, no, everyone holds in these specific types of erevos that closing your eyes actually helps. And this might, right, we'll start even, there's a sheet of the Rabbeinu Yonah, right? The Rabbeinu Yonah says that, right, since these types of erevos, it's just Chazal's assessment that this will lead to improper thoughts. Rabbeinu Yonah says, okay, I'll tell you a situation where it won't lead to improper thoughts. If you just do Re'iyah Ba'alma, it's only a problem, he says, if you actually stare at it, if you stare at the ereva. However, if you just look quickly and you don't really think about it that much, it's not going to lead to improper thoughts, and you actually could say Dvarim Shebekdusha in that situation. Okay, we're not going to be so mekel like that, but if you look at the Prima Gadim says, okay, but I'll tell you a for sure way you're not going to come to improper thoughts by closing your eyes. Right? If we're talking about the real Deoraisa ereva, we said that doesn't help to close your eyes because you're still in the presence of it. However, these other types of erevas, that's Chazal's assessment that it will lead to improper thoughts. It's not going to lead to improper thoughts if your eyes are closed. So therefore, if we go with that, there would be room for leniency, as the Stipler has a whole letter. He talks about this. The Stipler says, what are you going to do? Let's say you're at a Shabbos table. He says, it's time to say Kiddush, and there are women there that maybe their arms are uncovered, they have uncovered hair. So what are you going to do? Are you going to turn around? So he says, Mipnei Darchei Shalom, right, to keep the peace, he says, all you have to do, right, according to the Aruch Shulchan, if you don't usually do anything, but even according to the Mishabura, all you really have to do is close your eyes, and we could totally be mekel according to that. Okay, that's about women's hair. We'll just quote for 1 minute about the next thing that he talks about, Kol Zemer Isha, that you're not allowed to see the Dvarim Shebekdusha if you hear a woman singing. So that's, this is probably going to be less of an erva because it's not a physical thing. That's why he has this heter, just don't listen. Right, by a real erva, what are we going to say? We're going to say don't look, so you have to actually not look, but when it comes to a woman singing, there's a way around it. Just there's a way to not pay attention to it, and that would be okay. But let's say you can't. Let's say you're just so distracted by it. So maybe we could still be mekel. There's a Mordechai that says that he's quoting Yiraim that in his times there was Geisha women always singing in the streets. So what are we going to do? We're never going to be able to learn Torah. We're never going to be able to daven, right? Because 24/7 there's women singing in the streets. So he says no, and then in that case we say that if you're in a situation where women are constantly singing, there's nothing you could do. The Torah is going to be, no one's going to ever learn any Torah because women are always singing. So therefore, that would also be room to be mekel.